This is the Following the Joy podcast, a place to talk about being the best version of yourself, following your heart, making the changes needed, and having fun on this adventure we call life. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, then I invite you to stick around. I'm your host, Debbie Westwell, and this is Following the Joy. So today's interview is with Suzanne Andora Barron. She's a yoga instructor, a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner, and she runs a foundation in honour of her oldest son, Christopher, who sadly passed away from leukaemia at the age of 9. Now, this episode sees us speaking about his diagnosis, about Suzanne's anxiety, how she coped with the death of a child, and how she managed to do one fun thing a day to keep that joy in her life. We talk about the guilt that comes along with death. We briefly mention like the symbolism of the signs from those that we've loved and lost, how embracing the ordinary is good, and how she got into meditation and chanting and Jin Shin Jyutsu. It's really difficult to say that, that can help with like presentation, self-confidence, worry, headaches, and how she teaches that to others now. And most importantly, I think, is we talk about how to help a friend who is dealing with grief and loss. Now, we recorded this episode before December the 4th, which is when Suzanne's podcast comes out. But whilst we're talking about it, we get a bit confused because obviously her podcast is now out. And yeah, so please ignore that bit, but just roll with it. I hope you get a lot out of this. It's not too overly emotional, but obviously we are touching on the topics of the death of a child. So just be careful if you think you're going to be triggered by this. Sending you lots of love, and I hope you absolutely love this episode. Hi, Suzanne. Thank you for being with me today.
Hey, Debbie. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a privilege.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like you've got so much to share. So I'm going to just basically open up straight away, and I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself to our lovely listeners, if that's all right.
Yes. Okay. So I am a yoga instructor. I've been teaching yoga for 13 years. Most recently, I've been teaching a course called Yoga for Stress Management at my local community college. So I'm an adjunct professor, and I teach high school juniors and college students. I am also a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner, and Jin Shin Jyutsu is an ancient Japanese healing modality in which you use light touch and your breath to balance the mind, body, and spirit. Pre-pandemic, I primarily worked on other people, helping to balance their energy, release their discomfort, release their stress. But since the pandemic, I've been teaching workshops on how you can do Jin Shin Jyutsu on yourself, because there's a huge self-help component. So I'm always teaching different workshops on that, like stress, stomach aches, headaches, all of that. I have a foundation that I started. My oldest child, Christopher, had leukemia, and sadly he passed when he was 9. And I was destroyed, obviously. But one of the things I felt so strongly about was my boys, 2 boys. I still say I have 2 boys. My boys had such a good life and so much hope and opportunities that a lot of kids didn't have. And so one of the things Christopher loved to do was create his own comics, and even sold them on the front lawn. And so I didn't want my foundation to have anything to do with cancer because I couldn't be in that realm. So we created a program called, the foundation is called the Christopher Barron Live Life Foundation, and the workshops are called Christopher's Comic Book Inspirations. And we go into inner city schools, and we bring in professionals from Manhattan, actually from New York City, not Manhattan, a different borough. And I live not too far from New York, and they teach the kids how to create their own original comic strips like the professionals. And we've been doing it for, oh my goodness, maybe 11 years. We've worked with over 1,000 kids. And so, so I have that. And I'm starting a podcast on December 4th. And my podcast is called Finding Joy in the Hard. And we can talk about that a little bit. And I'm also writing a memoir. I'm in the final stages of the memoir. I've been working on it forever. I'm not going to tell you how many years because it's almost embarrassing. But I felt really compelled to write a memoir long before I ever thought of a podcast, because so many people, like, they would look at my life and be like, oh my God, you have such a sad life. And I'm like, no, I really don't. See, Christopher had leukemia 3 times. He had it at ages 3, 8, and 9. But he was in remission most of the time, because you can get in remission after 28 days. Treatment is long. So with childhood leukemia, you get into remission within 28 days, but then treatment is 2.5 years. But he was still in school. He was still playing, sports. He was still with his little buddies. We went away on vacation. Life was normal, and so, right. So I wrote this book because it's called Joy in the Midst, but it might be changed to Joy in the Midst of Hard. I'm not sure yet. And just because you can have joy in the midst of hard. And that's why my podcast is called Finding Joy in the Midst. Because there is so much joy to be had.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I've done Following the Joy. Well, first of all, let me say I am so sorry to hear that obviously you lost a son, because I don't have children, but I've got nieces and nephews. And I think anybody listening, that is anybody's worst nightmare, and it's unimaginable. So my heart goes out to you, and thank you very much for talking about it. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk a little bit about that, and then obviously how you kind of progress through and are this lovely, bubbly, happy person that I'm talking to today, because I'm sure that there were times that you didn't feel like that at all. And you sound like you've got a lot going on, but I'd love to kind of if we can roll back and start at the beginning, if that's all right, if you're all right with me asking you questions about that.
Of course,
because
I'm very open.
Okay, perfect. So obviously you mentioned that Christopher had leukemia, and I didn't even realize that. First thing, I've already learned something. You can get remission after 28 days, but it's a long treatment. But I mean, that in itself, did that take a huge toll on your family and your time? Did your world just completely crumble, or have you always been like, right, we're just one day at a time, let's go?
So I didn't tell you this, but when my boys were babies, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. That means I worried about everything all the time, right? And then I find out when he's 3, and we had no warning. I mean, he woke up with congestion, and he was sluggish. And 5 days later, we learned that it's childhood leukemia. And I mentioned the anxiety because, here I was phobic of germs, and I have a child who can't be around germs. I'm like, really, God? Like, really? But my children were so, oh yes, it blew up our world. It did. And we were like, I didn't know how to function. How does a child get cancer, right? Yeah. I mean, you hear of it, but you never expect it to happen to your child, ever. It's always somebody else's child. And my husband said to me, like, he knew I could get really attached to it, and that I might make cancer my cause. And he just said to me, like, on day 2, Christopher is so much more than leukemia, and our family is so much bigger than cancer. So we are not making this our cause. And it kind of set me straight. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And, he was still a little boy, right? I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time. Can you imagine? I can't even remember. It's so hard to remember that I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time. And but they were still little boys. And so I came up with the idea. So when you're getting constant chemo infusions, you get a catheter. And so the catheter was in his chest, and it was not too far from his heart. But when you have a catheter, this was called a portacatheter. When you have a catheter and you get a fever of 100.5, they might have changed it. It might be like 101 now, Fahrenheit. Everything's Fahrenheit in my country. So
okay.
Can't even imagine what that would be Celsius. But so you have to go to the ER. You have to go to the ER because they have to make sure that it's not something serious. And that being said, I was like, okay, so we have to do one fun thing a day, no matter what. So I created that. And because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, no one knows, but we could potentially be in the hospital the next day. So I didn't want to be like, oh, we'll do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow we're in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So we came up with this one fun thing a day, and it shaped our lives. You know, even though I had this full-blown anxiety, my boys being little boys was more important than falling into my anxiety. And, you know, and I did a lot for it, and I was in therapy, and I eventually went on treatment, and that was huge. But I knew they would never get to be these young ages again. Christopher would be on treatment until he was 5.5. Ryan would be 3.5. They're 2 years apart. And we would miss so much if we waited. Yeah. So we did things like that. And then the other thing I did that was huge, had no idea this would have such a huge impact. A friend of mine at the clinic where he was being treated said, you know, we're going to have really good times during this 2.5 years. And if we don't pay attention to them, if we don't write them down, we're not going to notice them, or we're going to forget them. So she started a gratitude journal, and I did too. Oh. And so, I know. So every day, 3 to 5 things I wrote down. And you know what it did? You don't realize this at the time. Everyone's like, yeah, everybody does gratitude journals. What does it do? Right. But it takes the focus off the negative and the hard, and it gives more weight to the positive. So that too shifted our days. You know, I would see like little things, joyful moments were easier to pay attention to because I recorded it at night.
Yeah. And it's that power of attraction as well, like the law of attraction. So, because I'm banging on about gratitude journals all the time this year, because I started writing gratitude journals, and I noticed when I don't do them, my vibration drops a little bit, and then I don't feel as good. And when I do them, it's like that kind of like law of attraction, that I'm writing down good things and I'm positive for all the good things and I'm grateful for them, and then suddenly I'm seeing more good things, or something that I would necessarily think, oh, you know, or ignore completely. Yes. I would be like, oh no, there is a bonus in that, and there is good in that. And I guess with you as well, I guess it also gives you something to look back on, because knowing that there would have been horrendous times as well, you've got that kind of, not only is it in the moment, it keeps you kind of a little bit positive, and like you said, looking at like all the good things.
Yes,
you've got that reference point to go back to go, actually it feels horrendous right now or terrible right now, but look at what we have done and look at what we have achieved. I don't know whether you did that immediately or anything like that, or if you have.
You know, I really didn't look back. I really stayed in the present, and it was amazing how I was able to stay in the present moment, because I was always, with anxiety, you're often looking back or looking forward, right? Worrying about the future, worrying about something you said. But I should tell you that it was kind of a miracle, but he was hospitalized for 1 week when he was first diagnosed, and he was never hospitalized again for 2.5 years. He never got sick enough. We would be driving to the hospital, and I figured out some of his fevers could be from dehydration. So I'd be like, chug that Poland Spring bottle. You know, like, of course, you know, when he was yes, I mean, he was a little 3-year-old, but when he was 4 and 5 too, you know what I mean? But yeah, the gratitude, the one fun thing a day, yeah, it made such a difference. And I've since, and we can talk about that later, I now bring those things. I don't bring one fun thing a day, but I bring gratitude journals when I teach my students at the college. And that's like an interesting story, but we can go there whenever you want. So,
I mean, I like one fun thing again, even for adults. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something for children. I think adults should be doing one fun thing a day. Like, just enjoy life.
Most definitely. Yes. You know, I mentioned it to the clinic nurse, and she recommended it to all of her patients, but I agree. Adults should do one fun thing a day. That should probably be the name of my book instead of Finding Joy in the Mist, but I mean, in the midst of hard. But yeah, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You just might not feel well, or you might be crashed with an assignment at work or whatever. And, you know, one fun thing for adults can be like sitting down and reading a chapter in your favorite book. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, I was putting spaghetti pots in the living room with tennis balls, and we were jumping from pillow to pillow. But
you sound like an awesome mum.
I had so much fun with my kids. I loved. Like, I just had so much fun with them.
But this is it though, and I think as we get older, then like the kids grow up, or like me, I don't have children, and my nephews and nieces have, well, my nephews have grown up and have no nieces. Don't know why I'm saying nieces, but do you know what I mean? Like my friends' children, my friends' daughters and stuff, they've all grown up. So then I'm like, okay, I want to play with Lego, and I want to, you know, go out and dance and twirl around and do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I definitely think we should definitely do more fun things.
Yeah, it makes such a difference.
Yeah. So go on, tell me
no,
about how do you stay, how do you keep a child kind of feeling like a normal child and not letting something like leukemia dictate your lives? Because obviously, like, your husband was very right in saying, like, it's like, we are not about cancer, we're not about leukemia, like, we're about us as a family type of thing. But how do you maintain that, or keep them as most normal life for both of your children? Because obviously, you know, it was happening to Christopher, but Ryan would have just had to be coming along with everything and going along with everything, with all the focus on his older brother, wouldn't he? So
yes. So it's really interesting that you asked that question. It wasn't my husband and I that kept it normal. It was our kids. And one of the very first things they said to us when we were at the hospital, it was like leukemia 101. We had to learn everything in 3 days, which is, but they said, your children will get you through this because their primary purpose is play. And so he didn't see himself as any different, right? Christopher didn't lose his hair, or not all of his hair, the first time around. And he wasn't we had to pull him out. He got sick in July, and then school would have started in September, pre-K 3, but we couldn't send him right away because the chemo was too intense. But then he started in January for pre-K 3. But, you know, I think I did a lot of the worrying. Like, I worried a lot, like, okay, like, I'll give you an example. So he had to take a chemo called 6-MP every day. And I had to break it in half, right? He took half a dose. And so I would break it in half. And every time I would use a pill cutter. And if I didn't hear the crack, like a couple times I didn't hear the crack, it's like, oh no, would that affect the efficacy? Wait a minute, if that affects the efficacy, he gets that every day. What does that mean? And so I would call the pharmacy, and he became a good friend. Not really, but he knew me. And I'm like, Matt, I didn't hear the crack, you know, and that was my anxiety kicking in.
yeah.
And he was like, do you wash your hands before you touch the pill? I'm like, of course. And he's like, well, your hands might have been a little wet, but it doesn't affect the efficacy. And I bring this up because, so yeah, I had the anxiety, but I think I probably went on medication maybe 6 months after he got sick. And that was huge for me. I still had anxiety, but it was so much less. Like, it probably was what regular people have, right? Yeah. Instead of mine, like, always being the driving force. And so the kids really dictated things. So we just, you know, if he had to go to clinic, we just, it was hard. It was super hard. But once he got in remission, I was convinced leukemia was in our past.
Yeah.
And so we lived like that, you know, and I became very, like, go with the flow. Others may not agree with that, but
you felt, like, yourself, like, you go with the flow.
Yeah. Like, right. You know, like, I remember this, I don't know why I remember this, but it came up. He went through this bout where he was getting just getting sick. And he did get sick, but it would only be in the morning. I mean, throwing up, right? And but he went through this bout where he would get sick, like, out of the blue, and then he'd be fine. So we were, like, at a pizza place. He's like, Mom, I'm going to be sick. I'm like, okay, here you go. He threw up. I'm like, okay, you want to go to the train store now? And they're like, yeah. Like, that's going with the flow, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas other mums might be like, oh, right, we need to take you home because you might have a bug. You're like, hey, we're dealing with things here, so it's fine. Throw up, let's go.
Exactly.
Drink
Exactly.
water.
Because like it just became like I got very, so after he passed, and we can go back, but I just want to share this. After he passed, I was in deep, deep grief for 3 years. I wasn't this person. I was wanting to talk. I was talking about wanting to die. Constantly, I had felt like I had one leg in this world, one leg in the future, in the next world, excuse me. And then I ended up teaching yoga to kids fighting chemo.
Oh.
But when the email came through, it was looking for teachers to teach through this this nonprofit, and I deleted the email. I'm like, absolutely not. There's no way I'm going to be around kids fighting chemo, because I had this like shame. I had a lot of shame because I was envious. I can say this now, but I couldn't say this for a long time.
Yeah.
I was envious of kids beating cancer, because why did they get to live when my son didn't, right? So I had so much shame around that, and I didn't really tell anyone. And so how could I be in the same room with a child fighting cancer? A month later, the email came through again. No teacher was found. And I heard this voice, and I know it was not my voice. And it said, say yes. This isn't just for the children. Like, you're not just helping the children. So I said yes, super scared, but I did it anyway. And like, I was seeing such a separation between those moms and those kids and me. But as it turned out, those kids were Christopher and the moms were me.
Yeah.
And
just under a different name. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because like I was the perfect teacher. And so many people said this to me. They're like, because I got it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when the kids, we were doing yoga while they were on IVs.
Oh,
and the
that's
moms were like,
amazing.
I know, right? And the moms were like, they're on an IV. Can they do that? And I'm like, my son was playing tag with his little brother and my sister in the hospital room. Yes, they can do it. But I didn't tell them that because none of the parents could know my story. Like I said to the medical staff, you know my story, but they can't know my story because I want them to have hope and I don't want them to have fear.
Oh, that's quite nice. But also, though, I think even just having somebody else who's been through it, regardless of the outcome of, at the end of it, I think. But I understand where you're coming from about like not wanting somebody to go through fear. But sometimes I think, like going back to what you were saying before about, I mean, obviously you went into deep grief and asking the questions why, but you must have asked the questions why all the way along. Like anybody would. I mean, I definitely would. Like, why now? Why him? Why not me? What have I done? Should I've looked at something? Should I've seen something? Like, it's something that we naturally go through when anybody goes through anything. Just we always turn the mirror around and blame ourselves a little bit, don't we? Like, what could I have done differently? It's just part of the grieving process, isn't it? Like, how could I have helped? Could it have been changed? Why now? What? Like, there's you never get answers, really, do you? At the end of the day, you've just got to make peace with it.
And I had that every step of the way. So when he got sick, when he got leukemia, they can't tell you why he got leukemia. They don't know, or they didn't know then. Yeah. And he got sick in 2001. And so I was like, was it the fertilizer? Was it something I missed? He did have that meltdown at the pool. Could that have been an indication? And all along the way, my son was a preemie. He was a preemie. I'm like, did I walk too much? Did I not drink enough water? It was constant. And then when he got sick the second time, he was 8. So he was in remission. He finished when he was 5.5. He actually got to close to the 5-year mark of remission, like that magical 5-year mark. He got sick. He relapsed maybe 3 months before. And so then it was like, wait a minute. It was those vaccines. Like I blamed it on the vaccines without having proof, right? No proof.
Yeah.
I blamed it on like, what could I have done? It was always my fault. Like I always found a way to blame me, right? Moms do that.
Yeah.
And eventually I have to say I let the guilt go because the guilt was eating me alive. and even guilt that I had after he passed. Well, there's a lot of guilt after a child dies. And one of my friends in an online grief group that I was in said it perfectly. She said, our job as parents is to keep our children safe. And when we can't do that, we blame ourselves.
Yeah. It makes complete sense. And it also makes sense before about what you were saying about, you know, like with the pills and stuff, because when everything else is out of control, if you can control something, even like the chopping of a pill perfectly, it just appeases your brain a tiny, tiny bit, just to know that you're in control of something. Because when everything else is just like the rug has been pulled out and everything's up in the air, you want that form of control in some form, way, shape or form. And it sounds like yours was chopping pills till you hear the snap and getting it perfect.
Yes. And the other piece of control was that one fun thing a day, right?
Yes.
That was and his diet. I was really into controlling his diet. I've always eaten healthy. So, you know, I made sure my kids ate healthy too. So it was his diet and then like one fun thing a day. If I could do those things, then I had control. Then I could make a difference. Then, you know.
Yeah. So I know you said like you let go of guilt, but how do you even start to do that?
It was a long time. It was, so when are you talking about pre-death or as post-death?
Well,
probably
any of it.
Post. Yeah. I think I got, so when he was here, I think I let it go because I just moved on to like the next thing we were doing. And you can't keep living in the past because then you're not present, you know, and they were so, little kids are so adorable, right? And they come out with the sweetest, craziest things and they just yank you into the present moment. And I think, I can't remember exactly when he was here. I think I feel like I just went on to the next thing. You know what I mean? I just went on to the next thing. And being on anti-anxiety medicine helped a lot, right? Because I was on it for 5 years. I was a huge believer in it because it made me a better mom. Because it made me be more present to my kids, which is what they needed. After his death, it was just, so when right when he was, the day before he died, something happened and we thought it was a seizure, but he was actually having a stroke. And I don't really talk about that very much because it was so painful, but so he was on a ton of medicine, right? This was when he was 9 and he was in the hospital in New York City. And he had torn his esophagus because his white blood counts were so low. That happens apparently when you have very low white blood counts for a while. And so we couldn't give him Tylenol, right? But he had a fever. So I was using essential oils. So lavender and peppermint oil both lower your temperature. They lower your fever.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah, isn't that incredible? So I was putting lavender oil on him. And then I don't know if we had Google, but it looked it up on the internet, whatever we had back then. This was in 2007. And it said that like lavender was not good with chemo, right? And that was probably just some random person who had no clue what they were talking about. So I said to the nurse, I'm like, oh my God, did I do this? Like, of course it has to be my fault, right? She's like, look at his IV pole. Look how many medicines he's on. You did not do this. So, you know, eventually I talked to some doctors who I became friendly with, and because I was in such close contact with, and they're like, you did not do this. Like, you did not do this. And just slowly, prayer was huge for me. I have a very strong faith. After Christopher died, I had no faith, but faith was the only thing that, without faith, I couldn't have survived. I got to that point. So just slowly, I realized that, you know, I have to let myself off the hook, because so when something terrible like a death happens, at least for me, but I've talked to other people and I've heard this as well. You don't see the good. You only just keep focusing on the bad. You keep focusing on the bad. And then slowly you start to see more of the good and you forget about the bad and you start to remember more of the good. And yes, while I didn't look back at those gratitude journals when he was alive, I did look back at them after he passed, right?
Yeah.
Because then I had all of those fun moments written down. And I was seeing a grief counselor at the time. I stopped, actually took myself off anti-anxiety medicine after he died. I just was like, the worst thing has happened. What else? What is there to be afraid of? And I stopped seeing my therapist, but I started seeing a grief counselor. And one of the things she suggested was, you need to put together a toolbox. And this could be for anyone who's going through a hard time. And put all of the things that you love to do in this toolbox. So at the time for me, it was running, prayer. At the time I was doing Bible studies. I started an art class after he died. So it was drawing and painting and all these other things. And then when I would feel really low and I would go in there and I was feeling really low and she's like, how's your toolbox? Are you using it? I'm like, nope. So for me, it was time. I did a lot of journaling. I wrote a lot to Christopher. Christopher still gives me so many signs. He visited me in my dreams, telling me he was okay. And it was a interest to want to be better. So I say I was in deep grief for 3 years. And a lot of people say, after their first year, it gets worse the second year. And I would have said that too, but I wrote in a journal daily. And so I could look back and be like, yeah, it feels harder, but I'm doing more than I was a year ago. Like a year ago, I didn't leave the house except to take my son to school. But this year I did whatever, right?
So again, those journals were good for you to reflect back and be like, look how far I have come, even if it's like, an inch further, it's still further, isn't it? So look how far I've come.
Yes. And then the other thing that helped was like, even though Christopher wasn't here, I still wanted to make him happy because he was still my child, right? Yeah. And so I made sure that his birthday and the anniversary of his death could be very sad days, right? They could be really sad days. But I still had a younger son. And my husband and I made the decision that we somehow had to pull it together, because how terrible would it be if he was 7 when Christopher died. So how terrible would it be if his life was messed up because his parents just couldn't pull themselves together,
he would have lost his brother and then his parents as well, essentially, wouldn't he? So
exactly, and he had to watch, he never went through that rebellious teenager stage. And I wonder, I didn't talk to him about it because I didn't want to bring it on. No, I don't know. I'm kidding. But he never went through it. But I think it's because he already saw his parents. Like, he saw us crying. He saw us hysterical. He already knew. I don't think he wanted to give us any pain or discomfort because he already saw so much, right? Yeah. But one of the things that I know we talked about before, and you asked me to talk more about it, was, so the anniversary of Christopher's death, I changed the way I approached it. So the second anniversary of his death, I decided I was going to take Ryan and my nephew Jake. The 3 of them, they were 1 year apart. So Jake falls in the middle, and so I decided I would take them to Long Beach Island. It's the Jersey Shore, and in New Jersey. And we went because in 2006, this is probably 2009, maybe. In 2006, I took my boys there. We had so much fun. We did everything. We had so much fun. So we decided to go there on the anniversary of Christopher's death because I wanted my Jake and Chris and Ryan, excuse me, to have like a fun day, you know,
Yeah.
and it felt like Christopher was with us. But of course, the day we woke up, pouring rain. I live an hour and a half from the beach. So I'm like, oh, it's probably better at the beach. You know, maybe it's not raining. Get to the beach, pouring rain.
Yeah.
So we went to the water park because we were going to get wet anyway.
I love that. See, the weather matches your mood, but you know, you just got to roll with it and find the silver lining in the clouds.
Yeah. And, you know, I have to tell you, like, while I was doing that, I was also like, sunshine was real. I didn't like sunshine after Christopher died because it was too painful. Like it was too happy. It was, you know, I liked the cloudy days because it reflected how I was feeling inside.
Yeah.
But I remember maybe like a year and a half after his death, or maybe a year. And I remember thinking like, oh, wow, I remember what happiness feels like. You know, I want to be happy again. That was probably more like 6 months because I was happy when I was with Ryan. You know, we would have laughter and such. So it was in and out. But so, yes, I changed the way we thought of the anniversary of the death. So on his anniversary, we always did things. We always ate his favorite foods. It was summertime, so I was often at the beach with my whole family, my siblings and all of their kids and spouses. And we would do something we never did before. One year we went stand-up paddleboarding. One year it was but that wasn't the crazy one. The crazy one was when I was with my husband and son in Utah. And I'm like, let's go ATV riding. How fun would that be?
I love ATV riding.
No, I do not love it. I thought it would be a 4-person car. I had to drive my own car. I don't like driving a rental car. Like we had to go and we went over mountain boulders. And I was like, okay. Well, if I die, it won't be the worst thing that's ever happened to me on this day. So, well, it'd be the worst thing for my husband and my son, because then they would have lost both of us. But so I think those things, like I fought so hard to save my child. I fought so hard to give my boys a normal life. That was so important to me. And because I fought so hard and my husband fought so hard, I think that changed post his death, right? Like once we got through the really deep grief, I was used to fighting. So then I was fighting to give my living child, you know, an ordinary life, trying to make. So some parents, when they lose their child, all different ways, I had that way of being. Like I was so used to having to fight. But that's not a bad thing. That was a good thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess in a way, it was probably a blessing that you had another child, because it would have been so easy to fall into, like, if that was your only child, to fall into like the deepest grief possible and just never pull yourself out. But I guess my question is, did you fight so hard to give Ryan a normal life?
Yes.
That it was a detriment to yourself? As in, did you look after yourself as well? Because there must have been times, I guess, when you were, you know, hi, let's go and do this today. And then just inside breaking and wait till you get to a quiet point on your own and just completely like let the grief out type of thing.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't like that at all. So I didn't really have the ability to piecemeal it like that, right?
Okay.
I could have very well have done some harm to him in that, and I don't mean harm, physical harm. I don't mean that, is that I was crying so much all the time, right? And so he witnessed that a lot. I remember one morning, he and I, the three of us slept in Christopher's bed the night we came home from the hospital without him, which was horrible. So horrible. I can't even get into how horrible it was. And like, there is no word for it. No parent, if you've never lost a child, you can't even imagine it, because anything you can imagine, it's 1 billion times worse.
Yeah.
So, but then Ryan and Rich moved back. He's like, I need a comfortable bed. But Ryan and I stayed and Christopher's bed probably for a few months, right? Because we just felt closer to Christopher. But I would get up early and go downstairs. I don't want to cry. I tried not to cry in front of him, but sometimes I couldn't help it, is what I mean.
Yeah.
So I would go downstairs, but he could hear me, right? And one day he came down. He was 7, and I was reading something, and he's like, "What are you reading?" And somebody gave something to me about death and children. And I said, "Oh, it's about something about dying." I don't know what I said, something like that. Takes it out of my hand and he puts it in the desk drawer and he's like, "This isn't good for you. Don't read this."
Oh, what a sweetheart.
7. I know. So he, I would drop him off at school. So my husband made the decision that Ryan was in an all-day camp this summer. Christopher died because we were spending so much time going in and out of the city. We would bring Ryan with us sometimes. We would just when he got the 3rd cancer when he was 9, we would pull Ryan out of school and be like, "You're coming to treatment today," or like, "You're not going to camp, you're coming with us." So but my husband made the decision he had to go back to camp 1 week after Christopher died, which was super hard for me because I wasn't ready to let him go. But I gave in. And so then he was off at camp. And then my husband and I were home for the first month and a half. And then Ryan went off to 2nd grade in September. So I would drop him off at school. So then by then, I was holding it together a little bit better in front of him. He would go off to school and I would come home and fall apart. So, but one of the things I became very, I just realized that I came to the understanding that fighting is so important for siblings. One of Christopher's nurses early on said, if they fighting is a good thing because you have to have energy to fight. If you're too sick, you're not going to fight.
Yeah. I was thinking, it's all about conflict resolution and stuff, but no, it's about because you've got the energy to be like, "I hate you."
Exactly. So all your listeners, like when your children fight, like remember that, like that's like fighting is a good thing. I know it's hard because you don't want to hear the fighting. So, but I had the realization that, oh my goodness, Ryan doesn't have anyone to fight with anymore, and that's a huge outlet for kids, right? Kids need to fight because it's how they get rid of so much extra stress.
Yeah.
And we don't like it as parents, but it is a release. And so I tried to offer Ryan releases. Like if he talked back to me, I'd be like, prior to Christopher's death, I'd be like, "You cannot do that." But I would let it go. Or I would tell him he can go up to his room. And, I know some people might not agree with this, but I'm like, go up to your room. And if you want to say a bad word, sometimes he would say the really bad word. I'm like, do it. I don't care if that gives you release. So he did that one day and he went upstairs and he comes back down. I'm like, "Did it help?" And he's like, "No, not really. You can't just say the word when it's not related to anything." He's 7 when he's telling me this.
He sounds like a very, very mature 7-year-old.
I know. So then something happened and I don't know, but he did something. Maybe he hurt his finger and he's like, "Oh crap." I hope that's okay that I said that.
That's okay. Don't worry. I've heard worse on this podcast.
Okay. And I said, "Do you feel better?" And he's like, "Yeah, that felt better."
Do you know what? Sometimes being taught by a 7-year-old, this is it. Sometimes you just need to swear when something happens.
Yes. And we would have like little screaming contests, who could scream louder about missing his brother. And, and he would put pillows on his ears when I would scream. And and it became like a game, but it was an outlet for him. But oddly enough, that day I was at my hairdresser and she was telling me that when a light pops, she knew her grandmother was near. We were having this screaming match and the light bulb popped.
Wow. Oh, I like that. I like anything to do with signs from people who have passed. Like I see them everywhere and I love it. Robins for me are a big one. So
it's amazing that you say robins because I was recording a podcast with another woman in our group, and Lucy Reynolds, and we started talking about signs because she lost her husband. And I didn't know. Do you know the meaning of robins?
Yeah, it's like a spirit person coming just to basically like just tell you that they're there or acknowledge you or give you hope and stuff. I'm sure it's something like that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. She said that it means your loved one is near.
Yeah, which
And
I love that.
Right, but I didn't know that. So I knew about cardinals being like the bird of, I don't know, death, or don't quote me on that. But after Christopher passed, so like I had so many robins on my front lawn. I started cycling because my husband, I didn't want to cycle previous, but then I'm like, what's there to be afraid of? Who cares if I cycle in traffic? I wasn't going to get hurt, but the fear was gone. And when I was cycling to the cemetery one day, like a robin almost hit me in the head. And I'd see a robin, I'd be like, hey, bud, how are you? Like, now I have to tell you, I know that he's not a bird. I know it's his energy that sent him.
Yeah.
that sent the bird. So,
I love that though. I literally have conversations with robins like you just did, because they're such a good songbird as well. Like, you just don't think about it. I think ours look a little bit different to yours in the States, and we definitely don't have cardinals in the UK. But yeah, every time I see a robin, I'm like, hi, and it's like at me, and I'm like, oh, well, that's lovely, thanks very much, thanks for being there. And then it'll chitter away to me again, and then I'm like, oh, thanks very much, see you later, bye.
That's so interesting, because Lucy's from the UK too. Wow.
Oh.
Now, did you lose someone close? I'm so sorry.
I've lost, well, I mean, grandparents. I lost also when I was 16, a guy that kind of was in my social circle, boyfriend, who was at that age, passed suddenly. And that kind of was a massive grief thing for me. And so I had some of those feelings that you had. So I didn't do my exams at that stage, because I was literally like, if I can die tomorrow, what is the point of sitting an exam? And I think a lot of my attitude through life has very much come from, if I can die tomorrow, I can go backpacking around Australia. I've basically gone, I'll do whatever I want to do because I might die tomorrow. So I think it's kind of like a good thing. As long as you've processed grief, I think it's a good thing to kind of have those attitudes. But I also think sometimes that attitude needs reining in a little bit, instead of being like, oh, I'm not happy, I'm just going to go do something instead. Sometimes you're just not learning the lesson that you need to learn from not being happy and going through that, and you just keep getting the lesson until you learn it, if that makes sense. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I love robins anyway. I love any form of symbolism of anything. Like, everywhere I go, there's ladybirds. It's so bizarre. Even in places where you don't find ladybirds, wherever I go, there's a ladybird. My dad calls me like the queen of ladybirds, and they're supposed to bring luck. So I'll have ladybirds for luck. Thank you very much. Oh, you call them ladybugs, don't you, over in the States?
We do. And ladybugs, yes. Ladybugs are a sign too, but mostly hearts. I get mostly hearts from Christopher.
Oh, I love that.
Because he knew I loved hearts, and I get them everywhere, like in egg yolks, in my son fell off his bike, it was a heart scab. I mean,
oh, amazing. I love crystal jewelry. If you want something gorgeous to wear on your wrist that has some amazing healing properties, check out Nisi B Jewellery on social media or on her website, which is www.nisibjewellery.co.uk, and that is spelt NISEYBEEJEWELLERY. Go treat yourself or someone you love to something wonderful.
It's now everywhere.
Then, let's talk positive things about Christopher, because obviously we don't want to assimilate it or associate it with
for sure,
like with leukemia, like
for sure.
F cancer, F leukemia.
Yes.
Let's talk fun things. He loved comic books.
Yes.
What was his favorite color, or what is his favorite color?
Favorite color was red or blue.
Okay.
Little debate on that.
Did that come out in all of his comic drawings and stuff?
So he actually created a comic called Ultimate Man. Ultimate Man was the character, and it's called Birth of a Hero. So on our foundation t-shirts, we have his character on the back.
Oh, and that's so cute.
He loved superheroes. So that's what it was. My husband loved comics. And so he read the original Spider-Man series from the 1960s to my boys as bedtime stories when they were little. So, and, you know, Christopher loved Harry Potter, and he loved, you know, all the things that—
I love Harry Potter.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, and so he loved swimming, and you know, like my mom would say, you know, Christopher just loves the ordinary things. Like he would love a barbecue at Nana and Pop-Up's house with all the cousins, or, you know, I always said he was an extraordinary, ordinary little boy, you know, because he was extraordinary, but then he just wanted to be ordinary, didn't want to be different from anyone else.
And there's definitely a lesson there to actually just enjoy the ordinary things, because I think sometimes in life we worry about the destination and not the getting there and the adventure of just everyday life and having those laughs and, you know,
Yes.
playing outside, or like having a barbecue or a grill, or, you know, just going to the mall and seeing what fun things you can get up to, type of thing. So I feel like that's a good lesson that you can take, or we can all take from that.
You know, I think my journey encouraged me to live much more presently, like I've said, encouraged me to do things that I would definitely have been much more like a rush, like hurry up, you know, like I probably still did that because my son wrote a poem and it was about rushing mom, but
out of the mouths of children, right?
Yes, exactly. But like, you know, one day in the summer I said like, okay, we'll go swimming tomorrow, you know, and the next day it was 50 degrees and cloudy. And I came downstairs and one of them had their goggles on. I think both of them were sitting there in the house with their swim goggles on. And I was, yes, we're going to the pool. And, you know, I was the only parent there. There were 4 kids in the pool. This is the town pool. There were 2 of them were mine. But, you know, maybe if I hadn't had all of this, I would have been like, no, it's terrible. I'm going to freeze. Then it started to rain, but they stayed. They were, you know, like, so we did things like that, my younger sister, Camille, would always say, I want to hang out with the Barrons because they make everything fun.
That's the greatest compliment.
Yes, exactly. We would go to dinner and we'd have such a fun time, the 4 of us. And, you know, and we eventually, like, I want to make it clear that not everyone who loses a child is like this, but I do have joy. I had so much joy before and I have so much joy after. And, you know, Thanksgiving, it was my, we purposely did it small. And the next day we got together with my gigantic family, but it was the 4 of us. It was my husband, my son, and my mother-in-law. And at different times we were like belly laughing, you know, like I do have joy, but there are things that I do every day to keep myself in a good place. And I do them without fail.
That's your basic self-care. And it's like having what you said before, actually, about like, you know, toolbox that your lady told you about. I literally talked about this with my coach, who was on one of my previous episodes, about anybody can benefit from a toolbox. We call it like your self-care one. Just have it at the back of your journal. And like you said, is it a walk in nature? Is it swimming? Is it, you know, just 3 deep breaths? Whatever it is, like short term, like something that takes 2 minutes, something that takes an hour, so that you can literally, it's like a menu that you can go to and pick off it and go, that's what I'm doing right now because I need to just feel that better, like that immediate spark of happiness or better or whatever it is. Even if it's looking at like dog farts on YouTube or something.
Whatever it is, that's for you. For me, it's meditation. I have to meditate daily. I do actually a mantra meditation. So I chant. It helps to make you happier. It helps your memory. It helps all of that, right? And then I do a 4-minute visualization and a gratitude journal. And I do those without fail. And then I teach that to my students as well, right? You should see them, the 16-year-olds that look at me when I tell them they're going to chant for 3 minutes every day for a week. But they come back and they're like, thank you so much for giving that to us during finals, because I was so much less stressed. I had less depression. I remembered things better.
Yeah. So doing this chanting and meditation, is that what got you into yoga, or kind of was it like the two kind of came together?
So that's a great question. Actually, my boys got me into yoga. So I signed them up for a yoga class when they were 4 and 2. And it was kids yoga, and they just had so much fun. I decided to try it myself. And so I practiced it a lot, pretty much. It wasn't a teacher. I just went to yoga often. It really helped me to, yoga is so great because it helps you to see beyond what you can see, and it helps you to know that you can do so much more than you think you can, right? Because you do these crazy poses that you never thought you could do. But yoga really helped me. Yoga, meditation, breath work were also part of, my toolbox, part of my lifesavers that helped me when I was in deep grief, especially Kundalini yoga. That's not like any other kind of yoga. You might be like flapping your arms up and down for 4 minutes. It doesn't look like
regular yoga. Okay. I've never been to Kundalini yoga, but it's on my list of to-do things.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it really helps the brain, right? Because so a lot of the time, so what the chanting does is we have meridians, of course, all throughout the body, but we also have them on the roof of the mouth. So when we say those syllables in a row, like I do the Kriya, it's called Satanama. And so it starts to change your brain waves, and if you do it every day, then it starts to change, and I notice, so I still have some anxiety, right? It's not nearly what it used to be. But I know doing this Satanama for 12 minutes a day, every day, I am much more calm. We were in Utah this past summer. My younger son is now 23. We hiked up to the top of the mountain, and he got up, and he got up much faster. And of course, and then he said, I have to get down. Like, I just don't like it up here. It was super windy. It was, super, super windy.
Yeah.
And he just went down by himself. And the old me would have been like, oh, shoot, like, what? He could trip. He could fall. Like, no one would know. There's not that many people in the mountain.
All the what ifs.
All the what ifs, right? I still have them, right? But I'd been doing this meditation already for like 30 days. And I knew in my heart he would be okay. And that was so huge, right?
Yeah.
Such a relief. And then I also practice Jin Shin Jyutsu on myself daily. Simply, the thumb, the fingers are related to different emotions.
Right, hang on. Stop with Jin Shin Jyutsu.
Correct. So Jin, think about
say that with your
drinking.
False teeth in. Yeah.
Right. Jin, think about the drink. Shin, think about your shin bone, and then Jitsu.
Okay.
Just like jiu-jitsu, but because jitsu is the art of. So,
okay.
So Jin Shin Jyutsu. And so there's, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So there's locations on 26 on each side of the body. They're not called locations. They're called something else. They're called safety energy locks, and you hold them, and they help with physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, and mental discomfort. But the simplest thing that I teach is the fingers are related to a different emotion, a different body part, and a different organ. So simply holding the thumb helps with worry.
Oh, like literally, if you've got like your hand up and you've got your other hand wrapped around your thumb.
Yes, but no squeezing, light touch.
Just light touch. Okay.
So
just hold it.
Just hold it. And, it could be, people always ask how long, maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes is too short for me. I will just find if I'm feeling a little uneasy, I just go to the thumb. It also helps with preoccupation. It helps with stomach aches. It helps with focus.
Ooh, who knew all of that was literally in your fingertips or in your thumb tips?
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. What are your other fingers for?
Oh, okay. So the index finger is, I'm just going to give you the emotions to make it simple. Yeah. Okay. Unless you want to know more.
No, just give us the emotions.
I think so too. The index finger is fear.
Okay.
The middle finger. Can you guess the middle finger?
Anger.
You got it.
Yes. Is that why we flick the bird at people?
Probably. They always say in Jin Shin Jyutsu, when you give the bird, reach for the finger. Like hold the finger rather than giving the bird, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then
Nice.
the ring finger is sadness and
Okay.
grief. And those are the hardest emotions to remove from the body, of course.
Yeah.
And the ring finger, the pinky, excuse me, is self-esteem,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
confidence. So if you find yourself using the word try, like I'll try that, or I'll try, hold that pinky.
Oh, and then I will do this, or I
Yeah,
am
because
already doing this. Yeah.
exactly. Isn't that incredible?
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, I think the listeners will love that. So let's just go through. So thumb is, what was thumb?
Worry. I'm
So
gonna make it
thumb
super
is
simple.
worry.
Some is worry.
Then the forefinger was
Fear.
fear. And then the middle one I know is anger. And then the ring finger is the grief and sadness. And the little finger is self-confidence.
Yes,
Oh,
you got it.
awesome. I hope everybody listening to this now is just note those down, just rewind a little bit, note those down, and then
Exactly.
just literally hold on to whatever you want to do. So do you have a
Yes.
practice doing Jin Shin Jyutsu?
I do.
Okay.
I actually, you mean my self-practice or a teaching practice? Which
Like
do
a
you mean?
teaching practice.
I do. So what I was doing, so I always bring it into my yoga classes. I also, during the pandemic, everybody was so anxious, right? And I've dealt with anxiety my whole life, and I have so many tools. So I started a newsletter where I would, because I'm a writer, I would have like a little mindfulness aha, like something that just would come to me, like, why am I letting this bother me? And it'd be like a little paragraph about that. Because everybody always has that. Like, why am I letting the computer taking so long to load bother me? Things like that.
Yes.
And then I always give a Jin Shin Jyutsu tip at the bottom of it. Always.
Oh, okay.
And so that's in my weekly newsletter. And then I also started a complimentary meditation that is open to all on Monday morning. So if it's 8 a.m. for me, it's probably 1 p.m. for you.
Yes.
Right. So it's 10 to 15 minutes. It's short. It's in and out. It's a Jin Shin Jyutsu guided meditation.
Is that online?
It is online. It's via Zoom. All of the information is in my newsletter. I can give it to you if you want. I'll give you all that information for your show notes.
I'll put all of the links in the show notes. So yeah.
So I've been doing that for 3 years, and not in the summer, I was doing little pop-up classes, like 30-minute classes, like Jin Shin Jyutsu for headaches, Jin Shin Jyutsu for allergies, Jin Shin Jyutsu for, worry. But what I'm going to be doing, I'm actually launching it in January. I decided to teach what we call the safety energy lock. So there's 26, and each one, like, they're related to your fingers, of course, but each one has a spiritual, physical, and mental meaning. But if you hold each one, it will help release different discomfort. So what's a quick example? And Jin Shin Jyutsu is intuitive. We do things all the time that we don't even realize. So like right now, like your headphone fell out.
So if you're in shock, you either put it to your face or you put it to your chest, don't you? Or like, actually, I've noticed now that you've told me that like my mum holds her wrist or her hands. Now my mum's in a care home. She's got dementia and Parkinson's, so she can't articulate how she's feeling. But sometimes she'll hold a finger or she'll hold her wrist or her hand. So that's probably self-soothing in a way, isn't it?
It is. So holding the wrist helps with calming nervousness, and it also connects to your intuition. And so, yes. And so people, when they do presentations, they'll hold the wrist because it calms you down. Yes. Or sometimes people will put their hand, like they'll, say they're sitting at a desk and they'll put their elbow down and they'll put their hand on their forehead, right? We do that a lot, right? When we're thinking, right on the forehead, there's a certain area on the forehead that helps with memory.
Wow. So we naturally do it anyway, don't we? It's just that this is a Japanese practice, isn't it?
It is. And it's 3,000. Yes, exactly. And it's 3,000 years old, but it was rediscovered in the early 1900s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, by a man by the name of Jeremiah. So, but what I'll be teaching is I'll be teaching where all the safety energy locks are, how to hold them, how long to hold them, what they mean. And the really cool part is that in learning Jin Shin Jyutsu, you learn numerology, because you learn what 1 means, and you learn what like 12 means, and you know what like neck pain means. Neck pain is all about control. Can you believe it?
Oh no, I'm all over all of this. Any form of pain in my body, I generally think it's to do with something else. It's not like the pain is the result. It's like, don't treat the result, treat what's going on in the first place. So it's like kind of releasing the emotion. Or like neck, for me, I couldn't move my neck earlier on this year, like literally couldn't twist it around or anything, and that's only being able to see in one direction, not be able to see all the directions. And you've got to like let certain things go, or let certain beliefs go, in order to be able to kind of heal yourself. So I love all of this. I feel like I'm gonna have to start going to Jin Shin Jyutsu. So I'm gonna like maybe be coming online and be like, you'll see me every week. Like, hello,
join me. Yes, please. Oh, and on Instagram, I also, like the other day, I came home, I posted a video on a quick hold for your immune system. Like, so I put things on Instagram too, like teachings and things like that. So, but you know, interestingly enough, like if the pain is in your neck, usually if the symptom is in your neck, the cause is usually below the waistline. Because if it's, so if your discomfort is below the waistline, the cause is usually above the waistline, and vice versa.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's fascinating. So yeah, so I really want people to be able to help themselves, right? Because I love the fact that, say I have food allergies, that's not a good thing, but I know that if I eat the wrong thing, so most of them are intolerances, right? I do not eat the things I'm allergic to, but sometimes I eat the things I'm intolerant of, right? Or I don't know it's in there, right? And I know I can do a spleen flow to help bring myself back to balance.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. See, I love that. I learned Reiki this year, so I do Reiki on myself every single day, and I've noticed that actually, since I've been balancing my energy, I used to have tension headaches that lasted 3 days, and I haven't had them since I have been giving myself Reiki every single day.
That's huge.
Yeah, I love everything about energy healing, and do as much as possible. I mean, sometimes we need to take the drugs, but you know, do as much as possible to heal ourselves. You know, we're not doctors, so you know.
Yes, and it's always yes, and thank you for bringing that up, because it is complementary to modern medicine, right? It's not in place.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes you need the meds, but sometimes it's the journey to them that you can kind of ease yourself on a slightly different path, can't you? So, so you do that, and you do your yoga. And
yes,
you teach your yoga to, you still do the cancer patients?
No, I gave that up. So when I was working on, maybe 2015 was my last time, because I was really, really in the thick of writing the memoir, and it was very hard to, you know, be writing about my son's difficult times in the book, and then also seeing the kids. And I just said to them, I need a break. I need to take time off. And so they were fine with that. I worked there for maybe 3 years. They were so appreciative when I was there. And so, but now I love it that I get to see kids through my foundation, but that's just comic books related, right? We work with 4th graders. We used to work with 5th graders. And that's,
you say that's just comic book related, but that sounds amazing. It really does.
It really is amazing. The kids get to learn. They create their own original character. They learn to They learn to pencil it and ink it and color it like the professionals. And then they create a comic story before they do the strip, right? So they learn how to create, they of course plot it, and then they learn to do everything. They learn to pencil, ink, letter, everything that a professional would do, they do on their own little comic.
Amazing. And these are children who wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do this normally.
Correct.
And so do you take donations from businesses or just individuals? Do you do fundraisers?
Both.
As in, like, if people are listening, want to donate some money, plug it now, Suzanne.
Yes, thank you. We do it through the foundation website. Anyone that is open to giving. Yes, we take donations from anyone who wants to give. We have done fundraisers. We just did a fundraiser. So during the pandemic, everything changed for everybody, but we started actually, this was a good thing. So we never did a run pre-pandemic because runs can be very expensive because you have to get insurance, right? Because people are running. So we never did that. But then we did a virtual run. People could run on their own, and then they would tell us, and we raised a lot of money from that. And we made the entry fee was so low. So Christopher just turned 25 in April. So the fee was $25, right? And when we did it the year before, I think we did it 2 years before that during the pandemic, and it was 23. It was open for 23 days. Yeah. You ran 2.3 miles or more. Someone ran 23 miles, but not me. And,
crazy people.
Right. So yeah, we've gotten some incredible donations. We actually had Sony Pictures.
Oh, wow.
They offered us, this was in 2013 or 14. We had met the PR director for Sony Pictures when Christopher's in the hospital because he wanted to see Spider-Man 3, and he saw it in the theater, but then he wanted to see it in the hospital. So long story, as short as it can be, someone got in touch with the PR director at the time, and they walked the video over. So while it was in the movie theaters, my son watched it in the hospital.
Oh, see, genuinely, if you ask, you sometimes get. It's always worth asking, isn't it? Because and especially, people will go out of the way to help other people. There are genuinely nice people in the world.
There are. And then he came to me and he said, if you can raise enough money, we will give you an opportunity to auction off a visit to the set of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, meet the stars, be an extra.
Wow.
We found a way to raise that money. So, I think we went through a company called Charity Buzz, and they auctioned it off.
Oh, brilliant.
And it was so great because I got to write the notice. They gave me the control to write the opportunity. And, most of those things you have to be over 18 to do.
Yeah.
But I wrote it for a child. It was a child opportunity, and that they had to have a guardian with them. So 2 people got to go.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's wonderful. Right. So remind me what the name of the foundation is again.
The Christopher Barron Live Life Foundation. And so it's ChristopherBarronLiveLife.org.
Perfect. I'll put it in the show notes anyway, but
okay,
I just wanted it to, I'm putting it in people's brains.
Yes. And it's been amazing working with those kids. That was something that was like a need for me. I felt this incredible need to help kids who didn't have the opportunities my kids had. And I know I said that before, but just working with the kids, and, I thought it would be so hard to see kids we started with 5th graders, to be so hard to be with 5th graders because Christopher never made it to 4th or 5th grade. But being with those kids, it lit me up because they would ask questions about Christopher, and, and they would tell me how sorry they were, or they would say things like, does Christopher have an iPhone? And I'd say, yeah, Christopher's in heaven. No, he does not have an iPhone. And they're like, what about his brother? I'm like, his brother's on Earth and he doesn't have an iPhone or a cell phone.
I kind of like that because that must have been really rewarding, but also it's innocent coming out of children's mouths, I guess. So here's a question for you, actually, because I am now learning to ask people how I can help them in their situation, because I think sometimes if you're going through what you've been through or any form of situation, my friend has recently lost her mum, my mum went through a real downfall of her health last year, and I was literally saying to people, I don't want you to ask me every day how my mum is, because we're being told that she's on her last legs, and so there's no easy way of saying she is dying, essentially. So stop asking me. And so I guess if anybody is going through, and if anybody was unfortunate enough to be going through what you were going through, what help, or in what form of help would you have appreciated, or did you appreciate at the time? Because some people, especially adults, find it really uncomfortable, because if they're not comfortable with the subject, or they don't know how to say, how can I help you, they just disappear, because they're almost frightened of asking and receiving an answer that they don't want to receive. So is there any advice that you could give on
I do have
receive?
advice, actually. My friends were phenomenal. They knew that I didn't, a lot of the times when people are in crisis, meals are delivered. And they were, when Christopher got sick each time. But after his passing, I did not want to make small talk with anyone, right? I didn't want to see anyone. And so I told them I do not want meals. But instead, they didn't stop there. They went and bought gift certificates. A large group of them got together and bought gift certificates to restaurants that I could order the food in. And so that was big, right? And one restaurant, I'm convinced that she probably let it. There's no way they paid that much money. She just kept it going after her. I'm convinced, because, that wasn't delivery. I would drive up. The owner would run out and hand me the dinner, put it in my car. So a couple things that I would recommend is for people who've lost someone, so not the person who's lost, don't say, what can I do? Because the person is so lost, they can't tell you. They have no idea what to tell you. So just show up with whatever you think they need. A friend would just I said, don't bring meals, but she was one of my best friends. So she knew I was okay talking to her, because I would call and cry to her.
Yeah.
So she would show up with a lasagna, or she would show up with different meals, or, someone would just mow the lawn, or they would just do things. But you can't ask, because 9 times out of 10, people are not going to call you and ask you to do something.
Yeah.
I was just having that conversation with a woman last night who lost her husband,
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is very big is, and this happens more with families, I think, than with friends, is that the family has such a hard time, especially if it's not like a parent, so everyone's involved. If it's like individual grief, like maybe it's a spouse or a child that, a family member lost, it's so painful to watch your sister or your daughter or whoever go through this grief, especially when they talk about wanting to die, right? So they want them to get better faster. So they'll often, sometimes I was told how to grieve. Like, you should do this, you should do that. And like, I brushed my teeth this morning. That's it.
That's a win for me today.
Exactly. But I would get so angry. So it wasn't like that. I would get so angry. Like, how dare you tell me how to grieve when you have no clue? And these were my siblings, and they loved me so much. But anger is a much easier emotion to deal with than grief, right?
Yeah.
So we go there easier.
Yeah.
So if you can.
And we can express anger to those we love a lot easier, because we know that they'll forgive us anyway.
Exactly. So hold back on the advice, for sure. My husband would say to me, he just had a much wider view than I did. And, people would say things to me, and they would say dumb things to me, and I would get frustrated, right? And he said to me one day, you get angry with the people who try, and they say something and it might not be exactly right. And you don't get angry at the people who make no effort. It's like, oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah, because the object's in front of you then, isn't it? Not out of sight. So I stopped,
and eventually in time, that was just really, really early on. Eventually, if someone said something that wasn't, that was a little off, I was like, they just don't know any better. They're doing the best they can. Or if someone lost someone and they're in deep grief and they said something, I'd be like, they're in deep grief. Can't hold it against them. They don't know what they're saying. They're just trying to breathe.
Yeah. Brilliant. So back off, basically, from people, as in like back off the pressure of emotions and asking them questions and telling them how to grieve, but keep showing up, regardless if they don't want you to show up. Just keep showing up, even if it's just a hug and go, or like probably even an emoji hug. Do you know what I mean? Just like to let them know that you're constantly thinking of them, and that you'll be there when they're ready to, or if they ever get ready to talk to you.
one of my friends, all of my friends did something different. And they, they really, this is one of the things I discovered. And it took me a little while to discover it with my family, because you have blind spots. But with people give what they have. So sometimes you want what they can't give. So I communicated my grief via email. So I would send emails out, and that was my heart-wrenching grief because I couldn't talk about it. And so some of my family members would just write, thank you. Thank you. I just poured my heart out and all you can say is thank you. And my friends would always have something to say that uplifted me, that supported me, that helped me. And what I didn't realize at the time was that my siblings were so devastated too, right? They weren't destroyed, but they were devastated. And so as I went on, I realized like, okay, so maybe my older sister would just say thank you, but she also came over my house with a stack of bills and my checkbook and paid all my bills because I wasn't paying them,
Yeah.
And so she was also making dinner, or she was also picking up Ryan to go play with her son, and so people give what they have. And if we can appreciate that they're giving us a gift from them, and it might not be we might want X and they give us Y, just appreciate Y because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And it's given from the heart. Yeah. That's actually such a lovely thing to remind people that although if you're deep in grief, you're probably not going to be able to see that, but
you won't see that at first.
But you can reflect
time
back
goes
on it, definitely.
Or even, grief was so long for me. So as I got stronger, I could see things more clearly. I had a friend who would text me all the time, ask me how I was, ask me to go to the movies all the time. We were always talking about me. I don't think I ever asked how she was doing, but she didn't care because she knew, eventually it flipped, of course.
Absolutely. And those are the gems as friends that you have in your life. Yeah.
Yes. And there are people, and it's really hard. There will be people that will stop talking to you. They will go radio silent on you. It only happened with 2 people for me, thank God, because I have so many people in my life, and they just couldn't talk to me. And they just couldn't handle the fact that a child could die. It was just too rough for them.
Yeah. And a lot of that is probably their reflections on the world and themselves.
Yes.
Because they couldn't cope with it. And so therefore they couldn't cope. They couldn't probably make sense of it themselves, and therefore couldn't help you with your grief because they couldn't stabilize themselves in the first place. And sometimes people like that, it's sad because they probably feel guilt about I couldn't do anything for her, they
probably do have guilt.
or whatever.
They do have guilt. Yes.
But you've got to kind of just let people pass through your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, aren't they? That's when friends come in for. So and then just send them out with love. I've had a bit of that recently.
That is so true. As we're talking, I'm thinking about this one woman, and she was phenomenal. She was the opposite. She basically held my hand. So our children went through leukemia the first time together, like a leukemia diagnosis the first time, right? But then Christopher relapsed, and then he got a third cancer, and she was with me the whole journey, and she could have been like, oh my God, this could happen to my son, but she didn't. She talked with me. She was there for me. After Christopher died, I called and cried to her.
Yeah.
I ended up pulling back from the friendship, but that was my stuff, not her stuff. She was with me on the whole journey, so that people really show their remarkableness, if that's a word.
We'll have it as a word. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, thank you ever so much for sharing that. So fast forward to now, and we've got a podcast out. It's called Finding the Joy in the Hard.
Finding Joy in the Hard.
Oh yeah, that's me. I'm finding the joy. Finding joy in the hard. Yes. And so will this be about about grief and people, or is it anything, or is it all sorts of stuff? Tell me what's going on.
Such a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So I had this idea, I was not one of those people who ever always wanted to do a podcast. I had an idea in August and I ran with it. which is a little unusual for me, but anyway, usually I procrastinate, right? So I had this idea, what if I share stories of people who've gone through incredible challenges and have come out the other side. So no, it's not all grief. So the other night I interviewed, I'm launching on December 4th, but I'm interviewing now. And I know that the timeline will be off. By the time this is aired, it will have been, it will be the past, right? But so I interviewed a woman the other day whose child became autistic at 2, right? So, and I interviewed some people have had loss, death is what I mean, death. I interviewed a friend of mine who is a quadriplegic and a single dad.
Wow.
And the interview is unbelievable because he will tell you that he is grateful this happened to him, grateful that he's quadriplegic, because he said if he didn't go down that path, his life was going down a bad direction, and he would have never had his daughter, and he's a big woodworker, and he would have never, now he inspires children. And so I'm interviewing anyone who's had a really hard, a big hard,
mm-hmm.
and came out the other side, how they found light in the dark and joy in the hard. And so, and then I'll also share my own story, different things, and every episode will also have a healing tip. So it might be Jin Shin Jyutsu, it might be breath work, it might be yoga related, it might be a gratitude journal related, any healing tip that can help people.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I can't wait to listen to that. So December 4th was launch day. I'm saying was launch day because, like you said, this is recorded before the launch of it, but we will be putting it out on air after the launch of it. Oh, the life of a podcaster. You've got to get your brain thinking, haven't you? So that's awesome. I can't wait to listen to that, Suzanne. And I just want to say a massive thank you. But before I do say a big thank you to you, I want to do a bit of a kind of a wrap up for what I want our lovely listeners to take away. So just some takeaways from everything that we've talked about today, because I know we kind of jumped a little bit, but that's how we roll. That's how our conversation happens, isn't it? So I think, so have a toolbox of like self-care stuff. I've said this before. I'm sure you've probably said it before to any of your listeners as well. Have a toolkit ready. If your children are fighting, that's a good thing because they've got lots of energy to fight.
And they're healthy.
And they're healthy. Yep, absolutely. Find something fun to do every single day. Even as an adult, we need to be finding some form of joy to do every single day. And don't put pressure on somebody who's going through grief. Just keep showing up for them. And remember, just hug your fingers, basically, and hug your thumbs gently. Yes. Brilliant. So, all right. So, brilliant. So thank you ever so much, Suzanne, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing probably what was one of the hardest parts of your life, and just being such a joyous, kind, happy human being, and letting other people kind of like learn through your grief, and also just seeing that it's possible to keep going and come out the other side and find that joy and happiness still and keep going with it. So thank you ever so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Debbie. Right. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. And as always, any links or anything mentioned will be in the show notes. If you haven't connected with me yet, I'd love to meet you. So come find me on Instagram at Debbie Westwell. Why not slide into my DMs and tell me what you thought of this episode? And if you like what you hear, then please follow me or hit the bell icon, share with somebody like you who would benefit from listening, and all positive reviews are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being your wonderful self, and I can't wait to chat next time.